Hey,
Hi.
good morning, everyone. I'm Megan Barnhard, and with me is Ella
Ella
Barn.
Barnard.
And we're here in the Ultimate Writing Group. All writers welcome to chat and to take your questions and to hear what you're thinking about in your writing process. So please, please, please join us. Ask the questions you have. Our topic today is excellence and perfectionism. So in particular, if you've got thoughts on that, if you've got questions about that, we'd love to hear from you. And the first question is really, what do you think perfectionism is? What's your take on that? And then, Ella, I have a question for you. That writing prompt you shared with us all the other day of the snowy day,
hmm
was that live video from your life?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I feel so lucky to be in California, and I'm amazed by people who actually enjoy winter weather. Um, that's kind of a neat place to start with an idea of thinking about excellence, and like perfect, because I would imagine that's not your idea of perfect weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No. At that point, you won't listen. And maybe that's someplace to start because in the wintertime, like right before Christmas, sure, that's perfect weather. You're like, oh, we're going to have a white Christmas. Everybody get the hot chocolate.
Yeah,
But,
come
but
March and April.
yeah, by this time of year, I'm like, wow. Like, and then I'm like, you know what? I can make something good of this by by doing a spontaneous writing prompt. Like, ooh, it's a sign of something, right?
It looked really foreboding. It looked really ominous. Yeah. So, and that's
Yeah.
exactly where I was thinking that there's this question of what can I, not just what can I do with, but how can I best use what I have. And I'm going to throw out what is a definition of excellence that makes sense to me, and let me know if it makes sense to you. But my idea of excellence is when we hold ourselves to a high standard,
hmm
which is kind of vague, right? And the high standard is something we define. We know when we're being excellent. I feel.
Yeah.
What do you think? Does that definition fly with you? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
high standard?
I think we know when we're doing something like maybe to the best of our ability without judgment. Like to the best of our we're
Oh,
like this yeah.
say more about that without judgment part.
Yeah. Well, because we're talking about excellence versus perfectionism, right? And perfectionism is holding yourself to the best of your ability and then saying not enough. You
Right, right.
know?
There's this sense with perfect that there is a standard, and no matter what you do, you're always falling short of it. And
Yeah.
I actually was hearing this conversation about what we do to kids in school. And the term perfectionism didn't come up, but that same concept did, where we create a standard, right? You have to achieve on this assignment. And then the student gets there and we go, oh yeah, but actually now it's the next assignment you have to achieve on. And we continually move the goalpost back, and then, hey, you may have done really fantastically this year, but guess what? There's a whole other year of school. And then guess what? You did so well in high school, and now you have to conquer college. And so there's this idea that you, in school, it's kind of a concrete way to see this. You move the goalpost back. But if that's what we're doing for ourselves, what do
Mhm.
you think the effect is of that? What does that feel like when we just say, nope, you didn't hit it yet, you didn't hit it yet, you didn't hit it yet?
Well, yeah, it's very discouraging. It's incredibly discouraging, and especially like when you're writing, uh, to think that there's nothing that your stuff is never good enough, which is also like one of the core like insecurities that people have, right? Everybody, if you get down to all your insecurities, it's that question of whether I'm good enough.
Yeah.
And so when you continually move that goalpost and you don't allow yourself to appreciate your excellence, like you and we like to talk about celebrating your progress, right?
Yeah.
So celebrate your progress or appreciate where you're at and the excellence that you've given for where you're at within the context, doing the best that you can, within the context of where you're at right now without judgment. That's very powerful versus comparing constantly wondering if you're good enough and trying to meet a goalpost that's constantly moving, which is very discouraging and I don't think helps I don't think it's like a workable or useful mindset for anybody.
And we could see that really concretely if we went back to your video of the weather. The weather is external to you, so this is kind of a cool way to see it because it's not a self-judgment. But if you looked at that weather and you compared it with the weather in Fiji, right, or if you chose your ideal destination and you compared that weather, then obviously it falls short. And the energy would be spent looking at that weather and going, why can't you be like the weather in Fiji or in Greece or wherever it is?
Yeah.
Instead of, ooh, there's a mystery and there's a wind, and wouldn't this make a cool writing prompt? And here's, I think, where there's a very subtle point we should draw out, because I have a suspicion that a lot of people know rationally they're not supposed to embrace perfectionism. That they hear perfectionism, they know that's not the right path, but secretly there's a feeling of, I really should go that way because I don't want to do something that's not perfect. And there's a conflation of something that's really good and something that's excellent with something that's perfect. So let's dive more into, let's talk more about what perfect means. If you were going to hazard a definition of perfect and perfectionism, what would that sound like to you?
Perfectionism is, and I'm not as eloquent. So, but for me, perfectionism is.
You are eloquent.
So perfectionism is an abstract ideal that we have in our minds that is undefined. It's not undefined. It just sits as an abstract ideal. And we know when we're not reaching it, like, when you haven't reached it, but you never know when you have reached it.
That's so important. And I was talking about school earlier, and there's if we're trying to achieve excellence, and you do this with your book covers, right? You if you want to make an excellent book cover, here is a checklist, right? And then somebody can actually self-assess. You can help assess, but somebody can actually self-assess and go through that checklist and say, did I do A, B, C, D, E, and F? And how well did I do each one, right? Yep. And it's defined. And if we're at school and we're working on an assignment, we expect that there is a rubric. There's a way to determine if we have achieved the goal. And so I'm really intrigued. I think that's got to be a huge part of perfectionism. There's not a defined goal. It's somebody who is the master, in this case maybe a voice inside our heads, who has a little clipboard and is taking off points, like an angry DMV driving lesson instructor. Except that person never shares with us what we did wrong. So it's just, nope, you didn't make it. Nope, you didn't make it. And if you think again of bringing that back to, I just keep going back to education.
I know. Go ahead.
But how would we ever learn? How would we ever move toward excellence and move toward becoming better at a task without somebody saying, well, the way you're falling short in this area is, you need to choose a different font.
I think they do tell us what we're doing wrong. I think that's like, I think our little checklist, they're like, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. I don't think they tell us what we're doing right.
Gotcha.
Because we definitely know when we haven't reached perfect. I think we're definitely aware of this is not perfect because of XYZ plus ABCD.
So let's refine further. We're getting what's wrong. We're not getting, so what is it we're missing? We're missing what it would look like for it to be right. Is that what it means, that it's an undefined expectation?
Well, here's the thing, perfectionism, it's actually unattainable. it isn't attainable, by anybody. I mean, I think if you went and looked at I think if you asked the classic authors who have written these beautiful, you're I think if you went and asked Jane Austen, is this book perfect? She would absolutely say no. I think that she, I'm sure, because nobody ever is I have written the perfect novel or the perfect book.
In fact, there is so much pain associated with the life of an author. And I would imagine a lot of it is that feeling of you're trying to get something out in a very particular way. And when you feel you haven't quite got it, but you've gotten close, it's very frustrating. So when we're being led by perfectionism, then what you're saying is we're being led towards something that doesn't exist. It's a chimera. It's like a pied piper coming along and saying, no, you have to keep going, but eventually it's leading us off a cliff. Because if we think about a definition of perfect, let's scale back from perfectionism. We say, what is perfect? Perfect is something that cannot be improved. Now, do we really believe that's within the realm of human endeavor and human possibility? And I ask this as somebody who thinks humans are rad. I love humans. I am not down on people at all. I do not have the feeling, oh, we're lowly and we should feel bad. I think humans rock and we should celebrate ourselves. But is that a possibility? I mean, perfection to me has the idea of stillness. Like there can't be movement in perfection because it's more like it's an end.
It's the end. Yeah.
So do we really think there's such a thing as a completion? There's not any more room to grow and evolve in our lives or in our art? It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. I think there's a truth that people say all the time, which is that nobody's perfect. Because I think it's a soul truth because we know in our hearts and souls that we're all constantly evolving, and that's part of why we're here, is to grow and learn and be. And so when you say nobody's perfect, which, you know, to expand on your definition of cannot be improved. So perfect means it cannot be improved. And it's like anti our souls or our spirit's like path is to constantly be learning and growing and improving. Right. I'm saying that in quotes. And so I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and it's kind of changed my ability to be creative and to go out and do creative things and allow myself to not be perfect, which is that, so we say that, nobody's perfect, right? But if nobody's perfect, and we talked about this a little bit the other day, and you said it so much, but like, if nobody's perfect, like nobody ever, 100% nobody's perfect, then actually the other side of that, which is also logically true, is that everybody's perfect, right?
Okay, so if we as human beings are not supposed to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Then by being imperfect, we're actually fulfilling our destiny, which in a sense makes us perfect. I mean, in a different way.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's such a weird, it's like, what?
So, but as you were, and I feel like I'm echoing. Am I giving a bad echo?
I can't hear you echoing.
I had a thought as we were talking about moving and changing and evolving that is right at the heart of writing. I've seen people revise a piece of writing so much they lose the piece of writing. And that's the struggle, right? We are meant to grow and evolve and keep moving. But if you want to finish an excellent piece of writing, you have to set a limit to the movement and at some point say, I stop evolving this particular work. This work is done. And I move on to the next one. And I think of writing as a fuzzy sweater, right? And you pick at it and you get this thread and then you pull and when you keep pulling and pulling and pulling, you could unravel your writing. So now that we know we don't want to move toward the static, you know, and or we know we can't get to that. It's perfect. It's complete. There's never anything you can improve upon. Let's talk about what that leaves writers with, and any artist really. How do you call excellence? How do you make peace with the fact that there will be more improvement you can do, but at a certain point you need to call your work finished? Because how challenging is that? You know, it's not that it can't ever be made better. And I'm sure you've encountered this in the people you work with and just even people in life. But the person who has the piece of artwork inside herself, the writing, something else, and she won't stop working on it in order to share it with the world, right? Like the
Yeah.
person who's always still writing her book or still revising it or just going back to that one painting and adding on to it.
Yeah.
Do you have your own experience with well, I know you have experience with calling something finished because you have books that you've published. Can you think back? Do you remember what that experience was like to say, I'm calling this done, like deciding how to call something excellent, even though we know it's not perfect because that's not possible?
Yes. Yeah. I do know some people who are constantly, oh, I just want to add this one little thing, or, oh, I need to improve this, I need to add another picture I want to put in the book, or I want to, and it's not a picture book. It's just a book with a couple of pictures, but I got to put it out, like I do know, or I'm not sure about the title. That could really get you stuck for a long time if you, you're like, it has to be the perfect title, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I'm thinking about the class that you and I did together recently, and one of the students couldn't even get to the point of making a cover because she was hung up on getting the right image.
yeah,
Part of the cover was only one component, but she wasn't ever able to get to the point of making the whole cover to see if it was going to work, because it was that one piece it was that search, right?
Yeah.
The quest. I'll find that one perfect image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, though, I think, and this is because the way I do it, mindset stuff, is it all comes down to a deeper allowing of imperfections, like a deeper allowing of accepting ourselves as we are, and being able to say, you know what, this is the best that I have within the with where I am right now. It doesn't mean that it won't improve.
Right.
It doesn't mean that like my writing won't improve. This particular piece may not improve, but I will get better. And there's an acceptance and an allowing for that we are, we are who we are. We do the best we can, and not judging that as much as possible, which is really hard. And I find that some ways to get through that is to trick your brain.
What are your favorite brain tricks? What are your go-to?
Yeah. So one of the best, and this is why people do it all the time, is giving yourself an end date and announcing it to a bunch of people.
Yeah. the positive kind of peer pressure.
Yeah. Yes.
Say, here's what I plan to do, and then the world holds you accountable, and they say, how's that book coming? Aren't you publishing it next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. You give yourself a realistic date, one where you know that you can do you don't give yourself a date that you know that you can't produce something to the best of your ability within that time frame, but you choose a realistic date, and then you announce it to a bunch of people who will be like, I'm looking forward to your book.
To do with that positivity. So you actually brought up something really key in the statement you made, because you said give yourself a realistic date, and part of that is knowing what's involved in the process. And that's so key. When I published my book, I was following something another author had written that was how to write, all the steps involved in publishing. The writing for me came really easily, but I had never published before, and just all these things you didn't think of. And I was following, I think it's Steve Scott, and I think he's got something like 46 points on a checklist.
Yeah.
But it was so valuable because I was able to look at that and look at a calendar and make a rational plan. And I had to modify as I went. I said, I thought that would take a little bit less time. It took longer. I mean, you can negotiate with that end deadline as long as you do it from a place of non-judgment, you were saying, and also just practicality. Oops, that didn't work, or I have friends coming to visit this weekend. I won't be able to get the work done that I thought I would. But knowing the pieces, those two things are so key, because giving yourself a deadline that's reasonable won't happen until you know the work involved. But also by knowing the work involved, you're going to build that confidence in yourself, because it's not anymore, this is what I think would make a good publishing process or a good cover or even a good, book overall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm basing this on knowledge. I'm basing this on what people have researched and what people have done. So I think the knowledge piece can help with the non-judgment piece too. It makes it a little bit external.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking a bit in this conversation, because we're talking about, knowing.
Yeah.
Having the knowledge, right? But what if you don't know, and how does that stop people? Like I don't usually get stopped once I get going. So once I get started, I'm committed, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I absolutely get stopped before I start by thinking this will never be perfect enough.
And it's a reason that a lot of people don't start, or they think they've started. I have heard this more than once from more than one person. Oh yeah, my book is all written. I just have to put all the words on the page.
Yeah.
Right? Like in my mind, I know exactly where it's going. And then, of course, my next question is, why aren't you putting the words on the page? And it's fear of it's not going to come out right. It's also just hard. It's a very challenging task, and there are ways that you can divide it up that make it a lot more friendly, doable. But absolutely, which is another great place for tricking yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of sitting down and thinking, I'm going to write a grand opus. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to write for 20 minutes. Whatever comes out, comes out. I'm going to sit down and I have to grab the author's name. I have to find the name. But he has a series of YouTube videos that's so powerful. It's about intend to write something bad.
Ooh.
Sit down and write something bad. And
I think I did that yesterday in the Facebook group.
Say again.
I think I did that yesterday in the Facebook group. I was like, I'm apologizing in advance for my typos and doing awkward period sentences, period.
You know what? I have a newfound delight in typos, because I think they are often our intuition speaking to us. I was typing yesterday, and I was writing about myself, and I was trying to write about my helpfulness, and what came out instead was the word helpfunness. And I thought, that's perfect. That's exactly what describes me. I'm helpfunness. And I'm convinced that's not a typo. That's my intuition speaking to me. So I don't know. Don't be too down on typos.
Oh no, No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I went out and I wrote the most terrible sentences.
Oh, gotcha. Intentionally.
I went out. Yeah, I made a typo first.
Yeah.
And somebody called me on it. and then I was like, you know what?
Across the keyboard type.
Yeah. It was just I messed up here and here. So HEARHERE.
Okay.
So someone called me on it, and then I went back and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it, and I'm going to write the worst typoed sentence that I can. And now I've done that worst thing, and nothing will be worse than that thing.
Yeah. Just like this guy is saying, if you intend to write something bad. Now, of course, that's a trick in another way, because you probably won't write something bad. If he says go to work on your book or your piece of writing, whatever it is, and try to write something bad, in all likelihood you won't. In all likelihood you'll write something pretty decent. But you're distracting the part of your mind that wants to lead you to perfectionism.
Yes.
And just saying, I have to get started. Because if you can get started, you rock. Did you ever listen to that Garfunkel and Oates song, You're a Loser? Garfunkel and Oates, those two hilarious, talented women. One of them is quite tall and one of them is quite short. Oh, okay. No. Look up the video, anybody who's watching, of You're a Loser by Garfunkel and Oates. It is so delightful. The whole song is how wonderful it is to be a loser. Because what it means is you tried. You came in last. but how awesome is it that you ran the race? And it's just this lovely homage to the people who are putting in the work and sharing from the deepest part of themselves, whether they're running races or writing poetry or writing books or creating art or anything else in the world that's really coming from a genuine place in themselves. And the task of writing is so hard. You know, we don't engage in this because it's easy.
Yeah.
We engage in it because we want to share something. So anybody who is actually writing, I applaud you.
Yeah.
I so much respect for you. And if you can keep at bay the judgment, what you get is this opportunity to grow. And you touched on something earlier that I wanted to return to, Ella. You said, I'm just really struck by this, that it's in our nature to grow and evolve. Mm-hmm. And something you can keep in mind as an artist and as a writer is that you don't have to do all of your evolving in one work, right? So to take one work to a place where you go, hey, you know what? I've been through this checklist. I know this is great content. I'm ready to put it out into the world, but I know that I can improve. So I'm going to write the next one. I'm going to start the next project. And instead of being alone and trapped in a trying to get to perfection state where you go, it's not ready yet, I can't put it out because it's not perfect, you say, wow, I made this excellent. I know it could always be better, but I'm going to take that energy of it could always be better, and instead of fixating on that one, I'm going to move it on to the next one. So that you're not, sorry, there's garbage trucks outside. So that you're not losing the chance to share with the world. One of the writers I helped was a really intensive experience because she had been through hell and back in her life, and she wrote a memoir, a really poignant and something that is unique. You should check it out. It's called A Conscious Peace by Ruchi Rai. And she finished writing it, and she went, I can't put this out into the world. I said, why not? She said, people will think I'm preaching. They'll think I'm up on a soapbox. They'll think I'm saying, here's what you should do, and here's how you should live your life. And my response was, it's always possible that somebody will not like what we wrote. And it's always possible that somebody will say, who are you to do this? But if you don't share it, you guarantee that people won't connect with your story, right? So if you share it, there is a possibility that it will be taken in a negative way. But if you don't share it, it's a certainty.
Well, so has she had some good responses?
People are writing to her and saying, I thought I was the only person who felt this way. She had 2 extremely serious car accidents. I mean, the paramedics looked at the car and they said nobody should be alive from that.
Wow.
And the kind of healing that's involved in that is not just physical, it's psychological. I mean, it just, there was so much that it disrupted in life. And so people had gone through all kinds of traumas. They wrote to her and they said, I thought I was the only one. You made me see there's somebody else out there and also giving this hope, right? Because even though it's been a hell of a journey, she's doing incredibly well and is just, she's not giving up. She's making it, she's making it what she wants it to be. So for somebody else to see they're not alone and that here's a woman who is healing from it and sharing her experiences about healing. When I think of the possibility of that loss, that other people have gotten to read that, I go, that's not acceptable. So it's not that you have to create art because you owe something to other people, but I guarantee that if there's something that you are really driven to say because it's really coming from a deep place in you, there is somebody out there who not only wants to hear it, but needs to hear it.
Yeah. And doesn't even have to. Oh, I am. Echoing.
Oh, and I'm not hearing you echo, so I don't know. I guess we're just hearing echo. Okay. We'll test it. We'll see if anybody else can hear our echoes.
Yeah, but not. So it's not even. It doesn't even have to be like some deep deep from your heart thing though, even though like it could be like all the time books are like, if you ask me whether I'd rather read a book or watch a movie, I would absolutely rather read a book.
Yeah.
That way I get to make the characters all look the way that I want them to look. Right. But I mean, but that's my brain break. You know, I'm like, I've done a lot of work on this thing. This stuff is all gone. I've done this and this and this. And now I need a break for my brain.
Yeah.
And I need just a good character to ride along with.
Right.
You know, but it's not heavy. It's not heavy. It's just fun. I mean, I just want a fun book. And I think in this group, there's a lot of people that are doing some really enjoyable. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they don't touch me. They absolutely do touch me. Like, I'm like, oh,
they're for a different purpose.
Yeah, there's all different reasons to get your stuff out there. But I'm super excited by how many people in this group have already gotten things out there. Like,
right. There are a lot of great books.
Yeah, it's exciting. The people in this group are definitely makers. Like, they're definitely getting it out there. And but yeah, I give everybody a high five.
Right. And that's showing up and obviously overcoming perfectionism to the extent that you can put your work out in the world. Because I do know people who haven't put their work out into the world. I know people who say, I mean, one of the people who told me, I have my whole story, I just have to, you know, my book is written, I just have to put the words on the page. And I'm going, isn't that the definition of writing, is putting words on the page? And I have great empathy for that.
Oh, yeah.
What I hear in it is, I just can't put it, what if it's not, what if it's not, what if it's not? And that what if voice, you know, it's that perfectionist voice. And here's something else to keep in mind. You and I have talked a lot about optimism. And I see a connection here where, you know, we tend to say it's more realistic to expect that things will fail. And the reality is none of us knows the future. And when you're hearing that what if voice of perfection, it's trying to tell you it knows the future. And it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't know. I say this all the time to my husband because I'm the more optimistic and he's the more realistic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is no more chance. Like, it's like 50-50 or whatever. Like, it's 50-50 that it could go awesome or it can go not awesome. Like,
right. There is no law of physics that says
yes,
not be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly right, though. I'm like, there's just as much chance that it could be wonderful weather or not wonderful weather. Like, it's just as much chance that everybody could hire you or nobody could hire you. It's just as much chance that someone will say yes or no, depending on who you're talking to, you know? So, yeah anyway, that's
what we're super huge fans of is helping people increase the chances of the good outcome by getting support, by getting into the right mindset, by getting the right tools. So there's more than a 50-50 chance that you'll do well if you also focus on getting the right knowledge, getting the right mindset, and getting support from people who want you to succeed. Awesome. I feel like, conquer perfectionism. I feel like we put it in its place.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like we said, be gone, we don't need you. Okay, awesome. Well, I don't know if I have any questions for people who are watching us right now, but we welcome anybody who watches this later to jump in with some questions or comments, or we'd love to hear from you. What's your idea of perfectionism? What do you do to keep it at bay, keep it in its cage? Lion tamer.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you have any last thoughts? I feel like we just totally described perfectionism, and a lot of people don't need to do it.
Yeah, I would be really curious for people, how does it show up in their lives? I'd be really curious. How does perfectionism show up in your life? And, or like you said, how do you deal with it? And can you hear my cat?
Yeah.
Okay. He goes specifically into the bathroom because he knows it echoes, and it amplifies. So sometimes he'll go straight into the bathtub. Anyways,
You're talking opera singer.
Yeah, no, he's so cute. So I'd be curious about, and then what, where in the process do they find that it hits them the most? Like, that's where I would be really curious as well. Like, some people like me, it's before I even start. Some people, it's maybe before they publish. So I'd be curious about that. Yep. And then
it's right at the end. I'm fine until it gets real to go. I'm about to share this. Find 500 things that have to be addressed in my writing. And also 500 things I have to do around the house so as not to work on.
There's so many reasons. There's so many things to do rather than deal with that not feeling good enough.
Exactly. I just remembered I have to build a compost. Yeah.
I have to carpet clean my whole house.
Yeah, it's important.
Like, that's what I would rather do. I would rather carpet clean my whole house than go and deal with this perfectionism. But actually, no. But that's why support and having a group is so important.
And also calling it out, not letting perfectionism be the silent voice.
Yes.
That we let shame us. To call it out and say, oh, that's my perfectionism. I'm hearing my perfectionism right now. Okay, I have to work through that. I have to get some help with that maybe, but that's what that is.
Yep. Cool. Yep. Yeah, we're calling you out, perfectionism. Watch out.
Coming to get you.
The Ultimate Writers Group is not standing for it.
Yes. All writers welcome, but perfectionism, we are not letting you in.
There's a red circle with a line through it.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? It's just a big hug. I feel like we could hug perfection into not existing. Because it would be like, you're trying to, make me feel sad until I don't do this anymore. And all I have for you and all I have for my writing work and all I have for myself is love. Right? Like, you can't make me feel bad about this. Just gonna choose to feel good.
Like Elizabeth Gilbert says, she puts her critic in the back seat of the car, but he's still on the ride.
Yeah,
I love that.
You're not allowed to touch the radio. You can't control the air conditioning.
Yeah, but you're here and you can come along, but you can't say anything.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you all later. Please put your comments and thoughts in, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye.
Bye.